Mac Miller has been an incredibly important artist to me personally, because Mac Miller is one of those special artists that can bring together a sound that combines pure emotion with beautiful musicality. His music can make you feel like you're on top of the world, like you're a kid again, or it can make you feel like you are in the absolute gutters. I love absolutely everything about Mac's music, and there's no better way to honor him than to keep the discussions going about it. So today, I felt like ranking all of Mac Miller's projects, starting from Kids and going all the way to Circles, based on my own personal opinion. I will be excluding EPs and anything not under the Mac Miller name, so no Larry Fisherman or no Delusional Thomas. And if I didn't rank something where you thought I would, let me know. I love talking about Mac Miller's music. Well, without any further intro, let's just get right into it. Blue Slide Park is often looked down as Mac's worst project, and while I do think it is ever so slightly underrated, I completely understand why. It's right at the end of the frat rap era, so it doesn't entirely feel like Kids or Best Day Ever, but it's directly before we start delving into some more interesting themes from Mac, like in Macadoic. This album is left feeling like an awkward middle child, despite being the first official studio album for Mac. There's not much real substance to be found anywhere on the album. It still brings some of that fun energy coming from Kids, but it just doesn't really do anything with it. Although it is my least favorite Mac project, there's still some highlights, like Missed Calls and Party on 5th Avenue.
Hey, can you turn up a little bit? Hold up, yo, Will.
Best Day Ever is definitely full of bangers, but it falls into the pitfalls that most of the stuff from Mac's frat rap era does. It just gets pretty stale. The whole shtick gets a bit boring, especially because there's some songs that are just downright bad on here, but that doesn't mean that the bangers still don't hit. This is just another project that I don't have all too much to say about. It's one that I revisit not all too frequently, and there's just a reason that the Mac frat rap era doesn't really live up to the rest of his discography. This mixtape holds a special place in my heart. It just feels like summertime to me. In my opinion, this is already a big step up from the last two projects. My metaphorical tier list would have moved up to like a C right here. However, this project does suffer from the first half being significantly better than the second half. After like track 6, this project takes a bit of a nosedive, but that does not stop the first half of this mixtape from being so good. So catchy, so fun, Mac's flows are just infectious, the beats are fun and they stick in your head. This project's whole first half is just great. Standouts from this mixtape are Willie Dynamite and The Scoop on Heaven, which I just think is a perfect song. Kids is a certified classic, and we are only at number 8. Sure, it didn't exactly age the best, and the remixes of beats from things like Fireflies are a little tacky, but you cannot deny this mixtape is just pure fun. Everyone and their mother has heard at least one of the songs on this mixtape, whether it's The Spins, Knock Knock, Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza, whatever. Before we got to a darker era of Mac's music, we got a mixtape of just pure fun and carefree wonder. This mixtape perfectly encapsulates the feeling of just being a dumbass in high school, not caring about anything but having fun with your buddies and chilling. It's almost depressing in a way, looking at this mixtape compared to his later works. The themes are just so drastically different. This mixtape feels so naive and childlike. It truly brings you back to a simpler time. Even though we're just at the bottom half of the ranking, there are so many emotions that I get from this mixtape that I just can't explain. Standouts for me personally are Senior Skip Day, Nikes on My Feet, and Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza. Macadoic is where we start to see Mac's music dive into some darker themes and sounds. While we still get some of the same of what we saw for Blue Slide Park, it is undeniable that something is slowly changing. The themes of self-doubt and substance abuse that we get through all of Mac's albums take their root in this project. Mac also begins to start pushing some boundaries in this album as we get some more experimental cuts. You can tell that he's trying to change up the same old frat rap formula and touch on some new, trippier sounds. We also get a couple features from some pretty A-list talent here, like Kendrick Lamar and Lil Wayne. This is the first Mac project that I can sit through every single song without a skip. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't some less than stellar cuts on here, but as with the projects I've discussed before, the songs that hit on this are absolute hitters. Some major standouts obviously include Thoughts from a Balcony, Fight the Feeling, and there are some sleepers on here like Desperado. Overall with this mixtape, you can tell that Mac, artistically, is starting to pick up some speed. While I may have it ranked a little lower than most people would rank it, I think The Divine Feminine is one of Mac's most impressive projects yet. This album has such interesting and beautiful theming throughout the instrumentation and just the album in general. To risk sounding like a broken record, the biggest problem with this project in my opinion is the consistency. There are some major highs, but there are some kind of low lows. Now the lows aren't necessarily bad, but they really just fail to stand out. They get lost within the theming and kind of fail to make a large impression. But again, I love the concepts and themes of this record, and that album cover is just absolutely beautiful. The album's cover is such a perfect mood setter. It just feels like how the album sounds. And while I feel the mood is the biggest highlight of this album, it does not fail to impress with songs like Cinderella, God is Fair, and Congratulations.
Shit, they got an app for that.
At this point in the ranking, this is where we get into the really good stuff. Watching movies is Mac's first major step into a more psychedelic sound. While we saw a hint of it on Macadoic, this is really the first major landmark in Mac's transformation as an artist. This is officially where Mac went from frat rap to stoner rap, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. This album is one that I think gets overlooked for being a little too mellow, but I feel that's what makes it so good. Watching movies is definitely made to be a cohesive experience. There are a lot of seamless transitions between tracks. I remember listening to this for the first time and just getting lost in the atmosphere. I think the title of this album perfectly describes how you feel listening to it. Much like Divine Feminine, the mood of this album really takes center stage. One criticism you might have is there's not too many standout tracks since everything just kind of runs together, but if you can overlook the lack of track-by-track replay value, you'll find some gold here. Some of my personal favorites are Matches, The Star Room, Avian, and of course Objects in the Mirror. If there was one album to perfectly describe Mac Miller with, it would be Good AM. This album brings the upbeat bangers from early Mac. It brings the depressing, somber, mellow, more introspective cuts that we know him for. It brings the psychedelic sounds and interesting experimentation. This record truly has everything, and it is the perfect summation of Mac as a whole. From the intro track and Brand Name, Mac is on 10. I believe his lyricism is some of the sharpest and the flows are the catchiest with this record. The sample flip on Brand Name is like a mix of Kids and Faces, and it is wonderful. Rush Hour is another track that brings a similar amount of energy, but if you can't get into that, there's always more laid-back tracks like The Weeknd, one of Mac's biggest hits at the time since the frat rap era. The slower, more introspective moments on this album, like ROS or the show-stopping Perfect Circles and Godspeed, are absolutely perfect. The latter probably being a top 3 Mac song of all time. I could go on about the beauty of this record, and again, we're only at number 4. If that isn't a testament to the quality of Mac's discography, I don't know what else is. My personal favorites from this record are Brand Name, 100 Grand Kids, Time Flies, Ascension, and again, Perfect Circles, Godspeed. And now for a quick interlude before we get into the top 3. Hey guys, I totally forgot about the High Life and the Jukebox. My bad, but they kind of just fall into the same ballpark as Blue Slide Park and Best Day Ever for me. Still that frat rap, like, kid on the streets sound. It's still got some fun to it, like, what is that one song off High Life? Another Light? That one's a pretty good one. But, yeah, they'd probably be 12 and 13 respectively anyways, so my bad, guys. Not a real Mac fan anymore. Please revoke my Mac card. My bad. The third best Mac Miller album happens to be the one that he unfortunately was not here to see. Circles is a difficult album to rank, not because of any quality issues, but because it's a really depressing experience. It's truly a shame to see an artist as good as Mac taken away from us at his artistic peak. John Bryan, however, did a fantastic job filling in the blanks that we never got to see, and it came out creating a very powerful and moving album experience. Mac's final love letter of a project truly had all of the Mac touch and sound that we got accustomed to with Swimming. You can tell that these were meant to be companion pieces. We get a lot more stripped back and intimate cuts, such as the opening track or Surf. I think this is the closest we get to a true jam session album from Mac, besides maybe the Live from Space EP. The singer-songwriter side of Mac comes out in spades through Circles, and it creates some very heavy moments. Good News and Woods are absolutely harrowing. I love this record from front to back, and as a big Mac fan who resonates heavily with his music, it is genuinely hard to get through sometimes. My highlights are Surf, Blue World, Good News, and Woods. We have officially reached the part of the Mac ranking where these albums get genuinely perfect. I don't have a bad word to say about either Swimming or Faces, so prepare to hear me just gush about both. What is there to say about Swimming that hasn't been said already? This is one of the greatest records of the 2010s decade. An absolute unmatched vibe, Swimming brings something to the table that is so unique, I don't think a single artist has even come close. A true medley of hip-hop, neo-soul, jazz, funk, synthwave, whatever. This record truly has it all. From the beautiful intro in Come Back to Earth, we get transported into Mac's world where we explore some of his deepest fears, insecurities, and thoughts. What's the Use is a beautiful piece of neo-funk that you can just bob your head to for hours. Self-Care is a stunning two-parter that is a quintessential beat switch in hip-hop. Small World brings some of that jazz sound that Mac loves to dive into. 2009 is a personal and touching story about Mac's beginnings in music, his rise to fame, and ultimately his declining mental health. Such a desolate yet hopeful album that I don't think describes the feeling of recovering addiction any better. We also get some of my favorite art direction with the merch and music videos surrounding this record that just feels so authentically Mac. I could honestly keep going on for hours about Swimming, and it's not even my favorite Mac record. Highlights for this one are honestly the whole thing.
Rap Diablo.
Finally, with number 1 we have Faces. This is one of my favorite projects of all time. Faces is a record I may eventually have to write a solo video essay on because it is one that I have so much to say about. It is artistic perfection. A beautifully cohesive experience. It boggles my mind how every single track stands alone yet flows so perfectly together. The psychedelic jazz rap sound of this record is something that I have been trying to find in so many artists for so long, and I don't think anything has really scratched the itch that Faces has. This is a supremely dark record. We are literally hearing a man stare his own addiction and mental agony down head on at the peak of his darkest moments. Despite how dark the subject matter is, we get a really upbeat and jovial sound of the album that almost falls into an uncanny valley of sorts. Everything feels fake, like it's wearing a mask while still telling you straight up about the darkness of life and addiction. Especially with the re-release, we truly saw the portrait of a man who knew he was doomed. A man who had little hope at the moment in time this was released, which makes everything just feel so much more depressing. From the beginning synths and trumpets of Inside Outside, the almost tongue-in-cheek delivery of the opening bars, you know exactly what you're in for. The 5-track run from Polo Jeans to Diablo is probably the most perfect moment in music I'll ever hear in my life. Not to mention the absolutely perfect treatment this mixtape has gotten from Mac's estate. The art direction, the bonus track, the attempt to stay as close as possible to the original, it is unlike anything we usually see in the industry. Before my script just keeps rambling on forever, I'm going to stop here. Just know that Faces is a perfect record and I couldn't say any more good things about it. Again, maybe one day I'll get to a video essay on Faces in some way. But either way, thank you, Mac, for creating such a beautiful piece of art, and I'll be bumping this until the day I die. Alright, that's all I got, y'all. I didn't write a script for this little outro part. I just wanted to say thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever. This was kind of just a little experiment video I did to kind of test out my editing abilities. So if you guys liked it, maybe I'll make some more. If not, then maybe I'll still make some more. Who knows? Either way, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around to the whole video. And if you want to talk Mac with me, get in the comments. Just let me know. Alright, peace.